Hi everyone, welcome to our second information video of the year aimed at mentors at Sussex University. This part 2 session is to be watched before the subject mentor meetings that you will do from the week of November the 22nd. So I'm hoping that you're watching this the week of November the 15th. It'll go live on our website on November the 15th. Particular focus today is on the CCF, just to help us just that extra step after our last training about embedding it a little bit more into our observations and our formative assessment forms. I just picked that there. So introduction, for those of you that don't know me, although I hope you did watch the original videos in September, my name is Branagh and I'm the lead tutor in charge of mentoring for the secondary team here at Sussex University in the Initial Teacher Education Department. As I've said, this is the second in a series of videos for the year. And particularly aimed at this phase. So it's an interesting phase for a trainee, so I'm going to guide you through certain bits to do with it. This is generic information for all mentors in secondary, but if you are a mentor of a part-time trainee or salaried, please do check dates and stuff that I might talk about later on, just in case they're different for your training, particularly for the part-time route. Salaried, it shouldn't be any different, should be exactly the same. You should also look at the ITE handbook and the mentor guidebook as well, which will help to go along with this. So in this session, I'm going to talk about what's new. There's always something slightly new each term. Thankfully, not as many new things as this time last year. What I thought would be interesting or just important to just sort of stop and go, right, what should you know? As a mentor, either new or experienced, there's a lot of stuff that's new this year. So even as an experienced mentor, let's just have a pause and think, right, what should I know at this point in the course? I'm just going to have a list. And if there's anything that you don't, obviously get in touch with your subject tutor. I'm going to talk about what the push is, the theme of this term. It's all about CCF, pretty much. There's a hint to my secret. Where should your trainee be right now? Very quick think about their stage of their progress. Particularly if you're a new mentor, you might, it's sort of pitching, is this normal for this stage? Should they be doing that? So just helping you to sort of calibrate where you are with your trainee, really. We're going to have a look at how to assess them at this stage. And see where they are, how to look after them. It's a vulnerable stage for a trainee, and then how to fill in the PPB form. Okay, so that's what we're working on today. As usual, thank you so much. We're very grateful for what you do for our trainees. It's still difficult out there in school. I know there's unbelievable levels of tiredness. I understand why it's still not normal. They seem well settled though. It feels like, especially in science, from my perspective, they're doing practicals, they're embedded in school. It's certainly a lot more normal than it was last year. So that's great. And that's down to you to help. You've helped them settle in really well. So thank you. So they are having a real school experience. They're doing what teachers at the moment are doing. So fingers crossed, it stays like this. So let's get straight into it. So this is the have a go term, right? So we've had phase A is finding out. They're on a fact-finding mission. They're building their professional knowledge, but now we want them to use that knowledge that they've built up. So a lot of time in uni, obviously weighted very much towards induction at university, filling their heads full of stuff. But now we want them to try stuff, have a go, but it is have a go. It's not be super finessed and absolutely marvelous, right? It's, you know, it's week 1 of Strictly. They're rough and ready, and they're having a go. Okay, plucky. So what's new from us to you? So we've been working as a curriculum team. Obviously, the secondary team is enormous here at Sussex. We have numerous tutors and lots of subjects. So we've been working on a way to share our curriculum maps with you. So our curriculum program for the year, what we do with them every Friday, what we did with them in induction, what we'll do with them in the future. So that's where our curriculum maps have come from, all mapped against the CCF. And some of us have been sharing resources with you too. Now, many of us have chosen a Padlet route. I'm not very good with tech, so I definitely went down a Padlet route where I could just shove things on and move them around easily. And we've shared them with you. Now, if if you don't, so when I get to what you should know, if you don't think that you've had this from your subject tutor, please do get in touch with them, because you really should know what we're doing every week. You asked us for shorter, regular announcements rather than longer ones. So we've tried to do that. And as lead tutors in our subject teams, we've been sending you weekly, I do weekly in science, weekly or fortnightly briefings, where again, we're saying, this is what we're doing in our curriculum studies, this is what's happening in professional studies, and just reminding you in sort of short bursts what needs to happen. And certainly from my perspective, it feels good to do that regularly and get in touch with you. But I think what we've realised is that all these different frameworks is just too much. So there's a document over here, there's a document over there. So we're going to streamline it. So what I've sent out in an email from Claire Stevens, and it's gone out to partnership through Keith as well, is having a look at the PPPA. So that first bit of what I'm calling the apple and tea document, that progress review document all the trainees have got that you've recently submitted. So you should be au fait with that now. Was looking at that going, really, we've got everything we need here. And with the bank of questions from one of the frameworks, I think that's enough. So what I've emailed you is a copy of, if I just show you here, all the different bits that we're looking for each standard linked to the CCF for this phase. So just for phase B. So it gives you an idea of where we are. So I'm starting to develop my use of questioning. I have some understanding of the challenges. Under supervision, I'm planning lessons that stretch and challenge. So that's the language that we're looking for, because they're still in novice mode. Okay. But hopefully having that bit with the questions that go with it from the framework all in one little document, although there's quite a lot of questions because there's quite a lot of standards, so it ends up looking a bit big, but you won't use it all. So hopefully having all that together is easier. Please give me feedback if it's not. Next year we'll make sure that everything's much smaller. Now we've got a better handle on everything, so hopefully that helps to simplify just a bank of phrases that you can use to write after your evaluation, after you've observed in your mentor meetings, and then for the PPP forms. It's always hard, so hard to say, isn't it? And help us focus on each stage that they're at. Now, if when you're looking at your trainee, you're like, oh, I think I'm having to look back at the A ones for you. You're still asking and observing, still should be observing lots, but you're observing because you don't really know how to do it on your own yet. You're not really willing to have a go. Then that's definitely a little flag that needs to go to the tutor. Okay. So gone through those with you. So what should you know? So we really need you to be able to have hands-on, where the curriculum map is for your subject area. So if anybody was to say to you, do you know what your subject are doing at university this Friday? What are they doing? How are you linking it to your mentor meetings? We really hope that you're able to go, I know exactly where to go for that. Siobhan, who's business studies, has sent me this lovely email every week, and it links to her Padlet that's got the curriculum map on there. And we want every single one of you to be at that stage. And again, if you're not, we need to know about it, and you need to contact your subject tutor. And then if you're worried about it, you contact me, and I'll deal with it at this end. So we'd like you to know what the focus is for each week. So for example, in science, we're doing creativity next week. So when I write to my mentors on Monday, I will write that to them. And then if I read a particular paper that's useful, probably be from Kind and Kind, I'll pop it on my reading Padlet, so that if my mentors want to, no expectation, if they want to, they can go and have a look and just have that sort of lens, that sort of looking into what we're doing. Now, what's working really well is when I look at the tracker, is I can see my trainees are writing about their focus for each week. Now, they've got their own personal focus, which is bang on and absolutely fine. But I do want them to think about what we're talking about. We send them off to observe with that focus each week. So I'll want them to observe creativity in lessons, whatever that might look like, in lessons next week, because we talk about it on Friday. So I want them to reflect on that in their tracker. But if we can, what's awesome is if we can talk a little bit, 5 or 10 minutes in the mentor meeting about that focus too. It really sort of brings it all together. If the mentor meetings are totally about what's coming, what's the planning, we're missing a bit of a trick there. Just a little bit of time to sideways development. It will help all the lessons anyway. So we can do that. That'd be marvelous. So what you should also know is the kind of language that's right for this stage and linked to the CCF. So in the PPPB phase, this trying out phase, it's having a go at something. I'm trying this. It's not I'm asking all the time about it, but I know which colleague to go to. I know we've built up enough knowledge now to be able to use that kind of language. And there's certain phrases like scaffolding. They talk about questioning a lot. They talk about how do we retrieve information from the pupils a lot, but how we seek help from expert colleagues comes up again and again and again. And when I show you some examples in a bit, you'll be able to see that as well. So, and then I've talked about that. We should use key questions. Remember those key questions in the framework in our mentor meeting. So you should know to be able to do that. So know where your map is, what's happening in your subject at uni, how you can weave it into your subject, what language we should be using linked to the CCF, key phrases that are important for their development. And our mentor meeting should also be developmental. So I'm just reminding you of what the PPPB will look like. Under the expert, the guidance of expert colleagues, I am able, I am starting, I have some understanding. So that's the kind of tone that we're looking at, okay? So what's the push this term? I think it's already clear, isn't it? Mapping the language of the CCF to our observations. And when we come to observe this term, that's really what we'll be focusing on when we watch you feedback to your trainee. It doesn't have to be matching. We're not looking for I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it in there. In fact, we don't want that. We do want you to feedback the way that you normally would, but what we're looking for is if we use the language, the trainees will use the language, and when they come to do their assessment form at the end of the term, it won't be a surprise. They're like, well, I know that I've done that because not only did I plan for it, but you validated that in my in our mentor meetings, in our observations, and I went to see that colleague in order to seek out more, and here's my evidence of that. So just make sure they're really clear what path they're going down. So are we setting the right kind of target? So are we saying go and do it or go and ask somebody about it? Those are they're really helpful in that target bit in the lesson observation. So go and talk to so-and-so about this. So we're seeking expert colleagues, the advice of expert colleagues about a specific thing that we want them to go and find out about. If they're struggling with behaviour management and routines, tell them to go and observe Jemima in English because she's a newly qualified teacher. She's an ECT, but she's following the routines and she's got that little bit of struggle, but she's getting there, right? Remember, watching someone that's just naturally gifted in the classroom isn't always the most useful thing for our trainees to see. So is it observing it or is it doing it? Is it seeking information? What is it that you want them to do? Be smart about it. Be really clear about it. And again, that will help them because they'll be like, oh, I know what I did. Now I can map it. So here's an example from a recent observation from one of my awesome science mentors. And you can see we've got here. So we've got really simple kind of area. So improve behaviour management and control of the classroom. Now, that on its own isn't useful, doesn't tell them anything. But look here, trial 3 different ways to get the pupils' attention and get them quiet. Yeah. So we're telling them here, linking to the CCF, develop clear behavioural expectations in line with school policy, okay? Use praise, all right? So if we'd added that in there, that would be really useful. Establishing clear rules and routines, it's directly linking to those statements in the CCF. The second one is what do we do with particular groups of pupils? So this is really clear. Make an appointment and go and see the SENCO to discuss SEND pupils in your classes. She's an amazing practitioner and a well of knowledge. So it's even qualifying why they need to go to the SENCO, and that links directly to the CCF understand the role of support staff, liaise with the Senko, know your kids, all right, know how to help them. And we often don't know how to help them until we've spoken to somebody else. So really clear there about how we're giving targets linking to the CCF. And then if I just show you, this is where it links to the main phase B help sheet, which links to the language in the assessment forms. The PPPB has exactly this language in. There it is, their role of the support staff. There's knowing your kids, and there's the sections about behaviour management. So let's go through some examples. I've asked colleagues to send me some. They've all sent me something. I couldn't get it all in here, or this video would be 3 hours long and nobody wants that. So I've just picked out a few at random, if I'm honest, but they're great. So here's one from business studies. Now, what I've got here, here's the keywords: stretch and challenge. Bing, instantly links to the CCF. If I click this slide, you'll see. So under the supervision of expert colleagues, I'm planning lessons which stretch and challenge pupils. Now, it's phase B, hence under the supervision of expert colleagues. You should still be in planning mode with them, co-planning mode. So stretch and challenge, tick, okay? In line with school policy, brilliant. Let's look at the CCF. Where was school policy one? School policy one. It's in this bit here, the wider ethos of school. So it's in that bit about professional practices. I'm going to flit around a lot here, I think. So stretch and challenge, we've got school policies, scaffolded, bingo. I'm able to introduce new material in steps. I'm starting to use guides, scaffolds, and worked examples. Perfect. Very good resources. So we've got stuff in the subject knowledge bit about resources. And there's this lovely bit here about student support, all right, which links to building relationships with our kids. And then where's the bit about resources? Oh, it's in here somewhere. There we go. I know how to access departmental resources. Sadly, there's not enough about making their own. Maybe this trainee is already ahead and it's in the phase C bit. This one again is from business studies, but this is the targets this time. So they're telling them what to do about assessment, how to use questions, know your students, and we're highlighting where to go to do it. So you need to know their data. So know your kids, ask questions, high quality talk, know how to support, and you should know the data on your kids, okay, in order to set targets and understand them. So again, we can set it, we can link in the strengths, but we really also need to link in the targets too. Quick one for drama. This is a really nice one. It was great that you identified this child before the lesson. You made sure they had the right card. So knowing the kids, doing appropriate intervention for them. It's wonderful. All right. Drama again, variety of scaffolding, excellent use of praise. Praise comes up quite a bit in those behavior columns for the CCF. There's questioning again, really specific about the techniques there. So not only are these linked to the CCF, but they're really good examples of feedback anyway. You know, if our trainees got this every single lesson, that they would improve enormously very quickly. It would save you an awful lot of time. So if you're not writing as much detail as this, you should be, basically. One line isn't enough for them. When you're doing the verbal feedback, they're already thinking about, how do I do it? What do I do? You're giving them an awful lot to do if most of your feedback is verbal. It could be brilliant verbal feedback. That's grand. But if your written feedback is scant, and it's like, oh, well, I've covered it verbally, I'm afraid you haven't, because they're going to go away. They're so busy of brain thinking, right, no, I'm listening, but I'm also acting in my head. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do. They need this to go back and look at after when the adrenaline's gone and they're calm. So please do write the way that this wonderful mentor has here, and well done, that mentor. There's not as much written on this English one. It's succinct, but it's grand, right? They're using the CCF language, oral feedback, scaffolding. We've got challenge all correct. You know, we've got stuff going on there. And this mentor has linked as well. Quite got the language right there, but it's, you know, they're linking to the CCF, but it's briefer. But I think we would like a little bit, just maybe a little bit more. But I'm able to map it against the CCF, which is grand. Here's a history one. This one's brilliant. This one's really focusing on expert colleagues and what to do with them. So talk to these colleagues about planning. Read this, right? Now, I like this bit here. If you want advice from you, the expert colleague, you can't get it if you give me the plan 5 minutes before the lesson starts. You can only get my help if you give me time. It's brilliantly worded. Brilliant. It says exactly what we want it to say. It's not shying away from truth, which is you're not getting your plans in, but it's giving them a reason. If you want my advice, you'll give me your plan. Here, read Dylan Williams' strategies, do this, do that. It's so specific. It's marvelous. So get those expert colleagues, expert colleagues, expert colleagues. Look how often it comes back. Yeah. If you advice from specialist staff. Yeah. I value feedback from a more experienced colleague. That's probably the most important phrase of the entire training year, right? So I value it. So I give you the plan so that you can help me, because we are in co-planning mode. That's what we're doing. Them just handing it to you. And also, let's remember, no plan, no teach, right? If they can't get that plan together to teach that group of children at this stage of their development, we are in trouble, all right? They have to get their plan in. But the CCF helps us you got to do that. So remember, the CCF isn't just their entitlement. They are entitled to do it. It is also part of their responsibility. They cannot move towards meeting the teacher standards if they're not doing all of this. This is laid out as the minimum of what they need to be doing and what they're entitled to from us. Remember, it's a two-way street. We've got to give a lot, but they've got to do a lot, right? And that's really clear in this language here. It's quite nicely worded. I value your feedback. So let's try and model what I've just shown you there. Lots of CCF language, making it really specific. So where should they be now? Experienced mentors have seen these diagrams a million times. Right, sadly, they're tired, it's dark. Their lessons, they're putting hours and hours into them. They're not always going the way they imagine. A little bit of disillusionment pops in. They shouldn't really still be in survival. Some of them might be, that's not a massive problem. They should be noticing where things are going wrong. Remember, you're asking questions. You're not telling them, you're asking, okay? So they should be able to give you answers. They're maybe still focusing on rules rather than, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, okay? Still slightly going through the motion. You're still giving models. However, you're focusing on questions and advice through questioning, right? So we're shifting from, I don't know what I'm doing, Macaulay Culkin, to, yeah, I think I know where I went wrong. And I hope I know how to fix it, but they might not know how to fix it. Okay. So how to assess them. So we look at the statements from the PPPB, right, which I've been going through all the way through this. Are they moving there, or are they mostly still at the PPPA? Now, just to remind you, here's the PPPA, right? So I'm observing, I'm starting, I'm still discussing, I'm aware, right? It's knowledge building. If you think they're still in knowledge building and not trying, we got a problem, all right? And you might want to think about a support plan. I'll talk about that in a sec. Now, this is so important at this stage. We're all the way through the training year. They need to evaluate their lessons fully on their lesson plan. If they're not doing that, that's an instant red flag, all right? They have to be evaluating their lessons. Otherwise, you're doing too much. They have to do their end of the bargain, and then you come in and go, okay, let's see what you've already thought about it. Let me ask you some questions. Don't fill in the answers for them. They should be able to do it themselves. Remember, you're using questions. I think I've said that enough. Do you think they're able to get to 8 hours by Christmas? It's not a deal breaker if they can't. Not everybody's always at that stage, right? Are they managing the workload? Are there plans in advance? And, that history trainee earlier, they weren't. So what are we doing about it? And are they listening to advice and feedback? So we're moving from, I haven't got a clue what's going on, proper novice, to, no, I know I'm not very good. Consciously incompetent, remember? That's the buzz of this particular thing. I'm trying it out. It didn't work. What am I going to do about it? And that's why it's important that they're creative. If they're just using a scheme of work from your shared area and not modifying it at all, that's a no, right? That's not trying it out. That's just copying. All right. So they do need to take good creative risks in the classroom, trying things out, being inventive. Okay, that's important. So how to look after them in this stage. Some of them are a bit wobblesome, aren't they, at this stage? We need to be willing to be available for them, willingly available, not, oh, I'm just too busy, come back later. I mean, if your trainees are irritant and they're always there, I would understand that you might have to have a word with them and say, right, let's set aside this time where you can come and see me. Let's set aside that time where you can come and see me. But always being unavailable isn't fair. It's not okay for them. I know everybody's busy, but they need you right now. And the more you put into them now, the quicker they will sail free. Okay, so willingly available is the phrase I'd like to put out there. We're still co-planning. Please don't think you just leave them alone to plan on their own. That's not what it's at. We're still, you know, beginning of November. They need your ideas. They need to twist them for themselves and their classes, obviously, but they still need you very much. But they need to be trying things out. But in order to be inventive, they need your help. They probably can't do that on their own. Now, can I make a real plea for this one? They have to have access to pupil data. If they don't, you are really adding to their workload, which is what we're not supposed to be doing, okay? They need their time for planning and assessing and all the other things that a trainee needs to do. If every time they need to see a class this, they've got to ask you, you are adding to your workload and you're adding to theirs. So please, 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 can they have access to your data system? And if they don't, please go to your professional tutor and find out why not. They're all cleared. Okay, so they need access, otherwise it's just a waste of time. And that links to the next one as well. They should know what they're teaching well in advance. When you've got a trainee and it's already the Thursday at school and they don't know what they're doing on a Monday, you're giving them an awful lot of stress, and stress adds to their workload. And if they've got to chase around and find out, well, who do I go to? What do I need to do? Please let them know at least 2 weeks in advance what they're going to be teaching, preferably the term, but 2 weeks in advance, please. The mental meetings are important. Like I've said, they're not just about the upcoming lessons. Please have a little bit at least that's about a pedagogic theme, preferably linked to what they're doing on their curriculum maps at uni. That would be awesome. Okay, so are they support plan? Are they okay? Now, it could be, and the plan is due, if you want to put them on a support plan, at the middle of next week. So you're watching this the week of the 15th. We need them the middle of next week. Don't just put them on one without talking to their tutor. Okay, let's discuss it first. It's a bit awkward when we just get that in our inbox and we haven't had an initial email. So don't let it be a shock, please. It could be nerves. It could be them settling in. And we'll discuss whether it's normal, particularly if you're a new mentor. We might say, oh, do you know what? That's perfectly normal for this stage. That normally settles down. Let's see, check on them in January, all right? But if it's that they're flatly refusing, slightly different language on my slide, are they flatly refusing to follow your advice and feedback? Yeah, we want to nip that early. We want to get in there early. If they seem incapable of getting the lesson plans in on time, we want to nip that early. If it's any issues of unprofessionalism, that's an instant, right? We want to come in there on that, okay? So those are reasons why we might put them on a support plan. It's not to relate to assessment or pupil progress, really. It's too early. So, well, the kids aren't really learning an awful lot. Yeah, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's more, it's got to be quite serious stuff right now, linked to dreadful organizational unprofessionalism, really, for support plan at this stage, because we're still in trying out, and trying out means mistakes. Okay, so fitting in the PPPB, this is a good example of a PPPA from one of my trainees. I love that we've got a nice bit. It's not too much, but I've seen some that are wee too tiny. Okay, and should not be signed off, if I'm honest. Lovely specific evidence here. She'll know exactly where to go back to when she's pulling her stuff together. Beautifully linked to the CCF, not too much, not too little, because for some of them you could put too much in there and there's no point. And nice, smart targets. Great feedback here from a mentor. I can see that it's linked to the CCF, demonstrating previous knowledge, retrieval, okay, that's a key thing. Stretch and challenge going on here. Again, we're talking about prior knowledge, retrieval, and their previous stages, okay? And they're working on routines. It is likely that a lot of the targets are still going to be behavioural based, okay? PPPA, I accept that lots of them are. PPPB, we want more about, much more about their teaching. Yeah, so some behavior, absolutely, but much more about their planning and teaching. And here's another one that's talking about modeling, data tracking. So different language, all grand, all linked to the CCF. So doing the PPPB, yeah, set up a timeline. I think we got a bit caught out before half term where some professional tutors wanted to hand it in after, totally understandable. You've got ECT stuff going on. And then some wanted it earlier because obviously we want some time off. So can you please set up a timeline with your trainee and give them plenty of warning when you want to see that first draft? Now, I would recommend that it's a two-stage process. We get a draft in and you go, oh, that's really detailed. That's awesome. We're willing to go to the next stage. Or it's like, these boxes are empty. What is going on? This isn't specific. And I'm afraid I've seen some that we've had to bat back, but they've been signed. So the one that I've highlighted in yellow here, please do not sign it until you're happy with it, okay? They must do this properly. It's not just, oh yeah, you've survived the term, sign it off, get them going. And please let the tutor know if you're concerned, because sometimes they share it with you before they share it with us. So if it's empty and there's nothing in there or there's question marks, it does not get signed. And don't worry too much about the deadline. We want it done properly, not rushed, please. Let's make sure that nothing comes through that isn't of a really good quality. Do try and map your comments to the strengths and targets linked to the CCF. Let's try and be more specific this time about what you want them to do, particularly in the targets bit. So you've got a gap here, so you're not doing enough modelling. You haven't been doing enough scaffolding. Go and observe this person. Try this in your lessons. They maybe need to be, quite a bit more detailed. And if they haven't been able to tick one of the statements, that maybe should go in as a target, because we've noticed that some they're not ticked, but it's not being mentioned underneath. Well, if that's a gap, it needs to be a target. Okay. Now, important note. We are not assessing in a summative manner. In the past, we used to go good, very good. That's not happening. It doesn't happen at all, okay? At all through the year. We're looking to see where they've made progress, moving towards all those different statements that we've got in the CCF. So we're in the trying out things. So we're having a go. Yeah, they're having a go. That's fine. They don't need to be perfect. We're just doing it, right? We're practicing it, doing it in our lessons. Okay. So, map it to the CCF, whether it's a strength or a target. We're only using standards right at the end. Now, we are looking at the standards as we go through, but it's not assessing them. It's just making sure that we still think, well, at the end of the course, you're going to be assessed against that. So you better know that that's happening, which is why we're mentioning the teacher standards. Otherwise, it would be a bit of a shock. You get to the end of the course and go, whoop, here's those teacher standards. I don't think they'd be very happy. So that's why they're mentioned in all the forms. We're still talking about the teacher standards, but really we're mapping against the CCF. Okay. So what's coming up? You watch this the 15th of November, probably not the 15th, the week of the 15th. Your subject mentor meetings are going to happen next week, so the week of the 22nd. An email's already been sent out. You can expect an email from your mentor, your tutor as well. Now, please do get in touch if there are any problems with the links. Don't email me, right? The likelihood is I'll be in my own mentor meeting, so do email your subject tutor. And the next generic session will go online the end of January, right at the end of January, and we'll get ready for PPPC and that stage of training development there. Here's a link to the Zoom links, but you've got them in an email, but just in case you're looking for them somewhere else, they go from Monday all the way to Thursday, so do check carefully. Now, we really want you there. We really, really, really want you at these meetings. They are at their most awesome if everybody's in them. Now, that's particularly important for those smaller subjects. So RE has 5 mentors. So if you can't come to that, say 2 of you don't come to RE, that's just 3. And then the energy just sort of seeps out and we don't have enough colleagues talking. We're trying to build communities of mentors where we all input, and your input is so valuable to us. So if you can't make it because, you've got open evening or parents evening, of course, we totally understand. We really do. We don't expect you to be in 2 places at once. And obviously that kind of issue at school would take precedence over our mentor meeting, but please do try to come if you can. We're all devastated when we don't get 100% attendance. You should see us, we're quite crestfallen. And we're totally G'd up when we get everybody there. So please be there if you possibly can. Remember the key information, there's our videos. The link to the videos on the partnership page. I mean, you've already found them, you're watching me, but for other stuff like the forms, Claire Stevens is where you contact for payments. Please don't contact me about payments, contact Claire Stevens, and she'll send the forms out at the end of November anyway. Change of partnership, remember, compared to last year, it's not Claire Stenning anymore, she's our big lead, it's Keith Pereira, all right? And remember, if you're part-time, that's Irena. Here's a link to the guidebook and the handbook for all the information that you need. And thanks again. Thank you so much. Thank you for being our mentor. And thank you for joining us. It's a privilege to work with you. It really is. And sorry for putting you through so many videos of me. I need to wear a mask or something next time and hide myself away. But thank you and stay safe. It's still troublesome out there, isn't there? Stay safe and I hope to see you all soon. So take care. All the best, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.